Taking a Jeep from general purpose to a more specific purpose, making it a seat, is what we tackle on today's Motorhead Garage. We also upgrade some trucks by adding a cold air intake system and a system for aftermarket gauges. Coming up next on Motorhead Garage.
Hey, welcome to another edition of Motorhead Garage. Well, folks, we got ourselves a 2015 Jeep Wrangler here. You know, they're beautiful machines, come all equipped, but you always like to personalize them yourself. And we got Landon McMath here from DV8, and he has brought some neat things to accessorize this with. And we've already started working on it. Landon, come on in here and tell me a little bit about this bumper now. This is one of yours, right?
Correct. This is the DV8 Off-Road RS2 rear bumper and tire carrier. And what's unique about this bumper, it's a tire carrier that opens up with the rear door. So it's one action to open up the rear door and tire carrier.
Yeah, we're going to show you how that works. Now, this is something here that comes from DV8 as well. But the key thing on it is it takes the weight of that tire off that rear door. Now, what happens over time on most of these tire carriers?
When people run oversized tires on the factory door, the hinge mounts here fatigue over time and will eventually fail.
All right, now we've already gone ahead and mounted the bumper on here, but this is unique because this is a tire carrier, but it mounts right here on the corner. Tell me about this.
This tire carrier mount is a dual tapered bearing design.
It's like a wheel bearing.
Correct, and it's also reinforced to the frame for extra strength.
So the weight of the tire is being carried on the frame, not here on the door. And this is a nice beefy unit here. You want me to help me with this? We'll put this on. What we're going to do is we're going to mount this up here to show you folks exactly how this goes. I'm going to go ahead and run this nut down so it gets snug. Okay, now go ahead and close this. Now, there's several adjustments on this that we got to make. One is right here. There's a stop that goes right into here. But the important thing of it is this swings out along with the rear door. Now, let's go ahead and adjust these rod ends here. Let's go ahead and line these up.
Okay.
All right, now let's see how this all works. So you see, you open the tailgate, see how nicely that folds out. That way, takes all the weight off the tailgate, puts it on the bumper. All right, let's check out Sam, see what he's up to now.
Well, Davey does some of the hard work back there. Bob McMath, who's the president of DV8, and he's telling me about some of the stuff we got here. Now, this bumper, this thing just comes right off at the stock when you put this in place.
Yes, it's pretty much 4 bolts on each side. The stock bumper comes off. This goes right in place. It's made of 3/16 steel and 1/4-inch plate. It's all high tensile strength steel. The bull bar here, we use 120 wall. A lot of companies only use 80 walls. We kind of build it to take some abuse.
Got a 12,000-pound winch, and of course it comes laced with this rope, which is much better than the cable. How much rope do you get here?
There's 83 feet of rope, and it's rated at 12,000 pounds as well.
Well, matches the winch. That's a great way to go. Don't use wire in the woods. And of course, I'm not a big Jeep aficionado, but that's obviously a replacement grill, isn't it?
Yeah, this is called an eyebrow grill, and it's shaped a little differently, gives you a little nicer look.
Yeah.
It comes in both textured and smooth finish, made of ABS plastic, and then the smooth finish is made of fiberglass.
Cool. That replaces that flat factory grill. And you got enough lights on here. Tell me about your lights. These yours?
These are all high-grade LED lighting. We use mostly Cree bulbs. We usually combine a flood and a spot on most of the lights, so you have a wider range of light.
And all these brackets look to me like they just bolt onto factory holes.
Yeah, everything uses a factory hole, factory bolts, very easy to install.
Cool. What about the wheels on this truck?
The wheels are beadlock wheels, and it's a true beadlock wheel. We make them both 17, 18, and 20-inch wheels. The beadlock that we use is a 6061 T6 grade aluminum, and we make them 5/8 of an inch thick. I believe that's thicker than anybody else because we don't want them bent.
What are the wheels rated at?
The wheels are rated at 3,500 pounds per wheel.
Wow.
So 14,000 pounds for the vehicle. The vehicle weighs 4,500 pounds.
Absolutely. So you got some great wheels, great tires. You got to have lighting in the dark, but Dave's got something really neat to top this off.
All right, folks, now here's the thing that's going to really set this off. It has a whole new top that goes with it. Now, the stock top is fine, but this is so much better, and it's easy. It's pretty light. Two guys can set it on there. It goes on with about 4 bolts. And Landon, tell me a little bit more about this, though.
Besides the unique look of the fastback hardtop, it also has a carpeted interior liner that makes the top much more quiet and seals better. The top also has a honeycomb reinforced panel inside of it, so it'll handle a lot of weight, and it's really a strong, durable top.
Well, it really looks nice. I like the way that looks. And it also has the target top right here, and this is going to go on the front. So it only takes just a few bolts to bolt that in, and we can put this in, and we're in good shape.
Time now for the industry update.
Here you go, trying to tighten this thing up. This is moving all around, and I've really honked on this vise. This is a cheap department store vise. Got a lot of slop in it. Get yourself a good vise, you'll work a lot safer.
Well, you can't have mine, that's for sure.
I want it.
I know you do. What we have here, folks, this is from Woodward Fab. This is the Hoyer vise. This is German made, and it's not cast iron, it's forged steel. It's 35% stronger than cast iron. But look at this, it's got a nice spindle in here, precision spindle, gives you that nice smooth movement like this. Look at that.
Yep, and I know this has got hardened jaws.
It has, and you can get different jaws for this as well. You get fiber, rubber, or polyurethane, and grooved, felt, whatever you need on this thing, they have it. Plus, if you open this a little bit farther, if you look, you can see you got these dual prism guides down here. They're extra wide too, so you get that nice precision feel. They don't bind up, and you can see this thing isn't sloppy like that cast iron.
So, if you want to work safe and do some really good precision work, you want a Hoyer vise from Woodward Fab, check out their website. You got to take a quick break, stick around, we've got a lot more coming here on Motorhead Garage.
This edition of Motorhead Garage, presented by ARP, is being brought to you by Original Parts Group, the world's largest source for GMA body parts and accessories. All Fit Automotive, highest quality universal lip, All Fit Lip Kit. VR12, ultimate cooling system protection. And by ARP, the world leader in fastener technology.
Hey, welcome back to Motorhead Garage. Well, folks, you saw what we do to the top of this Jeep. You know, we put a new top on there, which really makes it look good. Plus, we put that tire carrier, and that takes all the weight off the rear tailgate on it. And that is a heavy-duty unit. But we also got it up here on the lift, put a suspension system under it. Now, I got Brian Hayes here from Brian's Motorsports. And Brian, tell me about it. What is it you put in here?
It's a 3.5-inch rock runner kit from DV8, which you have progressive rate springs, JK springs.
What you have right here?
Yes, sir. You have the Fox 2.0s.
Yeah, these are nice beefy shocks that you got here.
Yes, sir. We have the Fox steering dampener, and then we also have an adjustable track bar we're getting ready to install.
All right, and that's dampener we just put in. And the track bar's right over here. You need this for anything?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is the track bar that we're talking about. And what that does, that helps keep the chassis centered, lets the suspension move up and down so it doesn't flop all over the place. And we don't like floppy suspensions, do we?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay, I'll hold that. Go ahead and put your bolt in.
And what this does is this centers the axle up in between the fenders.
Okay, you got it going there?
Yes, sir.
All right, now, since this rod end here is a little bit narrow, we got a spacer that goes in here. That'll close that up, and I put my bolt in there. And we got a nut somewhere. All right, hold on here. Let me get started. Okay. Okay, well, that takes care of the front. Now let's check on Sam in the back.
All right, what I'm putting on here, instead of rock sliders, much easier when it's on the lift. These things are real heavy, like 160 wall. They're very rugged. This is when you hit something, it'll help propel the Jeep over it, but you won't hit all this sheet metal and damage it. This is the best investment you can make if you're gonna get it off the road and get serious. They bolt on real easy, right on the cushion bolts. Now, you lifted the front, you gotta lift the rear too. So it's, again, it's a 3-inch lift kit. You get a nice set of springs. They have specific spring rate. You get these nice shocks. These are gas. And again, the shock valving is to work with the weight of the vehicle, the way the vehicle's set up, the spring rate. Of course, what you have to do is, like in the front, extend this brake hose down. So rather than have to bleed the brakes, change hoses, and so on, get a little bracket in the kit, get a little hardware. Here's the original feed nut. The little bracket goes in here, and all you're doing is basically lowering this so you don't have any real tension on your brake hose. So that, I'll get myself a 10mm socket, and I can tighten that up. And what you want to do is not get it real snug till you position it just the way you want. Next is, you got to extend the sway bar link. It's right here. It goes up in here. It's a mount on the top and a mount on the bottom. We'll slide this through here. All right, while I'm putting these links on, you'll notice also that they really have a nice set of inner fender skirts or inner fender liners. That really finishes off the vehicle, makes it look real good, and that'll also help keep some of the trash from getting up in the cracks and crannies. Make sure you tighten everything down. Comes with good quality hardware. Of course, it's got lock nuts, so once it's tightened, the lock nut's not going to come off. This is all stuff you can do in your driveway, by the way. Just be safe, get a good set of jack stands, use a good jack. Now there's a steel spacer inside the shock eye, so you don't want to over tighten it, but this will prevent you from squeezing that together and binding the shock. All I need to do now is tighten up these upper shock bolts. Everything else looks good. I'll get rid of these stands, pop the wheels and tires on it. We'll set it on the ground. Right now we need to take a quick break. We've got a lot more coming here at Motorhead Garage, so stick around.
Motorhead Garage, presented by ARP, coming to you from Borla Commerce Park.
Welcome back to Motorhead Garage. Working on this little Silverado here. You know, you see a lot of these, this little 5.3. This happens to be a 4x4 truck. And we're going to try to give it a little bit more torque by adding a cold air intake. A lot of you guys have put these on. There's not much to it, just follow the instructions. Start off by taking all of the factory stuff off. And what I'm doing here is in the box that's going to isolate the underhood ambient air and bring in the cold air. We're going to have a little snorkel here that the air filter will go on and our mass airflow sensor. So let's talk a little bit about those. They have a directional arrow, and that is the direction of flow. Make sure you get that right, because with the bolt pattern, they can go on backwards and they're not going to work real well. If you look at a mass airflow sensor, inside there are fine wires. Don't touch it. Don't spray carburetor cleaner or brake cleaner or anything like that on it. There are a few companies that make a specific mass airflow sensor cleaner. That's okay. And if you use cheap paper air filters and the lint gets on there, it'll cause a problem. And by the way, there's an electrical connection that you'll be unplugging and plugging. Anytime on any of these computerized engines, you're unplugging or hooking up a sensor, make sure the ignition switch is at least in the off position. If you don't have the battery disconnected, that will save you from maybe potentially doing some damage. Now, here's the throttle body. While I got the tubes off it, this throttle body is electric, no cable, drive-by-wire if you would. It's got a bidirectional DC motor right here. We all know after miles you need to clean these things. Do not push these electric ones with your finger. If you shove that in and out a couple times, pretty strong chance you're going to damage this thing. You're going to have to replace it. So throttle bodies can be anywhere from $600 to $1,500 for these trucks. It's a pretty expensive piece. If you want to clean it, have somebody turn the key on, put your foot on the throttle, let it open up. While they're holding it, get a rag and clean it out. And again, some intake cleaner, not carb cleaner, so you don't take the coatings off it. Okay, let me go ahead and install this in here. And again, the air is going to flow this way. So I want to make sure my arrow is in the right direction. Again, just start them by fingers. They go into these little brass inserts, and you don't want to strip them out. We'll set this in here. And I've got 4 6mm screws with washers that'll use a 10mm socket to drive them in. Now we'll have our adapter here that goes on to the throttle body. Slide that on, make sure these screws are loose so you can get your pipes in. Try to do a nice, neat job, keep things in a good order. And again, if you're going to have this off and leave the truck for any length of time, what you really need to do is to go ahead and put something in that throttle body so stuff doesn't get in there. The little nipple that screws in here, that's going to be for this little vent line. This will fit in there. There's a rubber bellows here. Make sure you got the clamp on. Before you put it on here, fit that on, slide it on, and then this should go right in here like that. Make sure it fits good all the way around. Tighten up your clamps and you're in good shape. Now here's your mass airflow connector. Plug that right in so it snaps, good and tight. And then you have your filter. This is a reusable filter that you oil it. When it gets dirty, you can wash it out. Make sure you put your clamp in there because you won't get it in later. Then you re-oil it after it dries. Do not use compressed air on it. Don't use a heat gun. Just let it dry naturally in the sun. That's a great idea. Great way to do it. We'll bolt this up, tighten this up, and that's all there is to putting a cold air kit in. Hope you learned something about what not to damage when you're doing something like this. We're gonna take a quick break. We'll be back with a lot more here on Motorhead Garage.
This edition of Motorhead Garage, presented by ARP, is being brought to you by Performance Automotive. Getting you there first, that's our passion. Clamp Tight, the clamp making tool. Evapo-Rust, super safe rust remover. And by Stage 8, the world's best locking fastener.
Welcome back to Motorhead Garage. Well, if you're thinking about doing some gauges, particularly for your diesel performance truck, we've got the solution and the answer for you today. I'm here with Michael Pliska. He's the engineering manager for ISSPRO. Michael, this is a pretty good system. I really like it. I've seen it on a lot of trucks now. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, the ISSPRO Performax system, it's basically we have what we call the electronic signal processor, or ESP. That module mounts under the hood. All the signals from the sensors, all those wires just run to that box, and then it's just 3 common wires that run through the firewall and up to your gauges. Anywhere from 1 gauge up to 17 gauges, it's just that same 3 wires.
3 wires. If I have 2 gauges and I want to add 4 more, you just go on in the same set of wires.
You just add the sensors under the hood, hook them to the ESP, and then keep adding more gauges up inside.
That's a multiplexing system, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a data bus. Each gauge just kind of watches for its own message and displays the information.
Awesome. And believe me, Michael knows his way around diesel performance trucks. You've won a couple of championships, haven't you?
I have. Most recently, I was the 2012 National Hot Rod Diesel Association Pro Stock World Champion.
That's pretty quick in a diesel truck. Duramax?
Yep, Duramax powered.
Awesome. We need to get to work. We need to install this system so you can see how it works.
Well, Sam, first thing we've got to do is find a spot to mount the ESP. And what we'll do is mount it with Velcro to the top of the underhood fuse box.
That's great. And of course, it'll need to be wired. So you need a power supply. We'll run a fused wire from battery positive, and then we'll need to put a ground. And then we'll also have to find a wire when we turn the key on. It's live with the ignition on, and run that to the ESP also. Then, of course, we'll need to drill and tap the exhaust manifold with a 1/827 National Pipe Tap for the EGT, the exhaust gas temperature probe, and the back pressure sensor.
And we'll need to adjust that EGT probe depth so that the tip is right in the middle of the exhaust flow. And on the coiled tubing for that exhaust back pressure sensor, we have to orient that so there are no low spots in the coils.
And then, of course, we'll be routing the exhaust sensor wiring to the ESP module. Now, let's talk about installing this boost tap bolt and sensor. Where does this tap bolt go?
That just goes to replace any of the inner row of the intake manifold bolts.
Okay, so this is drilled and it'll pick up manifold pressure right there.
Yes, and all those bolt holes go all the way through.
Cool. All right, so now tell me about this fuel pressure tap and bolt. Where does this bolt and sensor go?
That bolt goes and replaces the banjo bolt that's on the bottom of the fuel filter canister. And then from there, we're going to build kind of a little mini hydraulic accumulator to damp out the pulsations in the fuel system. As you know, these 24-valve Dodges are notorious for that. So we're going to add a restrictor valve, then a length of hose, another restrictor valve, and then the sensor.
All right, so then what we'll need to do is route the boost and fuel pressure wiring to the module, and we'll need to pick up a signal from the interior panel light dimmer and run that to the module also so the gauges will dim.
And we'll need to add a wire into the cab to hook to a button for the optional peak recall function.
Then, of course, when we take the pillow pod, we're ready to mount that and put the gauges in it. But before we put the gauges in, if you want to have them have the limit lights come on, you need to program them.
Yes, there's software and a cable that comes with kits for doing that. It's pretty self-explanatory. You just walk through the software on the screen and you set whatever limits you want and hit program and you're done.
And these gauges, they snap right in. They don't have a bracket on the back. They got little nubs on them. It's really easy to put them in.
And it's also neat because if you got your pyrometer in one spot and you decided you want it in a little more visible spot, since it's just those same 3 wires, you just move it to another spot. Another handy thing is if you have more sensors than you have room for gauges, you can plug in that gauge later on. You can hook the sensor up, and let's say you're towing and you don't always want a voltmeter on your truck, but you want to be able to monitor that later. Just hook that up later.
Hey, Michael, nice install. Fire it up. Let's see how this all works.
All right. All right, our lights come on. Gauges look good. We've got fuel pressure coming up. We got the pyrometer showing just about what it should be. No boost, of course, since we're just sitting
Shut
here.
it off. When it comes to gauges, this ISSPRO setup is awesome. Got you covered. And those 3 wires we put in the cab, we've got 3 gauges in now. We can go up to 17 gauges by just adding the little clips on the wires. It's a great way to go. They also make a really nice retrofit fuel tank sending unit for these trucks. They're famous for they build them for the military and for the big truck market. And when it comes to your automatic transmission cooler lines, don't cut them to get your temp sensor in there. They have a nice bracket that clips on the line. They have a sensor that screws into it. The thermistor's right on the end, so it gives you a really accurate trans temp reading. It's a great way to go. Hope you enjoyed today's show. We'll see you next time here at Motorhead Garage.